In this video, I'm going to be showing you a WebAssembly demo. It's using my library that I've been working on called Orb for Elixir. And so you can create all sorts of things. WebAssembly, you can do any sort of operations with data. And here I've got a demo that renders an HTML page and also renders an XML sitemap. So here it is. So here's a obviously a web page running, and you see that as I type on the left here, it updates live on the right. And so I hit return, which would submit it, and we've just added a URL to our little sitemap. So we'll just add another URL and maybe another. And so you can see there, okay, input goes in here, output goes here. So the form is powered by HTML, and you can see the preview actually of the HTML that has been generated by the WebAssembly module here. So this form is just pure HTML, and then a little bit of JavaScript on top to add some smarts about listening to input events, which you might recognize if you've used React's onChange, and also submit events. And so there's also a server-only version. So I can just open that in this tab here, and you can see that it's the same experience. And I can add multiple URLs. And you'll notice one big difference, apart from the Chrome that's around the outside. The big difference is that we're actually submitting using old-fashioned form capabilities that are built into browsers. So it's using method equals get, which is actually the default underneath. So these fields, which are named, if we just inspect, actually, we can see the, I've got a lot open at the moment, so it's a little bit slow, but that window will come up, and it just basically serializes the form data here and transforms it into a URL encoding. Let's just try that again. I believe that will work. So if we look at our form, you'll see that each input has a name, URL, plural, and then open close bracket. And that's just a convention, doesn't really mean anything here. It's just a convention to sort of say that, hey, we're going to have multiple values that are under this name URLs. So that's how this works. It's literally, there's no JavaScript here. It's simply, I shouldn't have closed that. It's simply a form. You can see there. There's a button here. By default, a button inside a form will be of type submit. So submitting that form will find all the inputs that are named and request the current URL with those query parameters attached. So I've got another little preview here. I can preview the sitemap, and so this works in the same way actually. It just basically submits the form, and the form data gets serialized into the URL. You can see here now I've got a XML version of that data. So that's what that sitemap XML is. So I've got the same 2 bits of functionality, just 2 different routes, index.html, sitemap.xml, coming here. And this is all server rendered. There's no client-side JavaScript at all. Literally, I go here and update, and it's going to hopefully not stuff up the font size there, but it's going to just re-render. So it's just basically going, hey, WebAssembly module, set this input data, and what HTML should I get out the other side? So this is what powers this experience as well. In fact, it's actually the exact same WebAssembly module. And so as I'm going through here, every keystroke, I'm getting the data from the form, and I'm asking it for what's the XML, given if I set this input data, what's the XML that should be outputted. And also if I go and submit here, it's essentially the same as the what was happening with the server rendered page over here. So it's the exact same process. So you can see that this was about a 4 kilobyte WebAssembly module powering all of this. And you might have also noticed that we got some nice autofocus handling. So this is just powered by the autofocus. It's a very slow experience as I inspect. This input has the autofocus Boolean HTML attribute set. And so we do the same thing here, that hey, basically when we re-render this page, we're going to get new HTML. It's going to find the element that has the autofocus attribute on it, and then it's going to use JavaScript to focus it for us. So again, the exact same output, the HTML, is being used to power a slightly different experience here. I've also wired this up to push state and the pop state event. So if I go back and forth here, you'll see that this changes. And so this is like a single page app experience. And this works exactly the same as how the browser actually gives us for free. So you can see here that the browser essentially caches every visit to this home page, which when we submit this form, method get, it's essentially a new visit. We're getting the same experience here. And so I think it's just really interesting. It shows the power of, we can have this one WebAssembly module power both I don't really like the term, but multi-page app experience, or just what I just think of as a traditional web app. And then it also can power this JavaScript power enhanced web app, where we can see feedback live as we type, which is a really nice experience to have. So you might be wondering, what's the code that powers this? So there's a bit more to it to do the orchestration of the JavaScript and stuff, but here's just the WebAssembly module. I'm working out how to create standards of certain ways that these WebAssembly modules will expose stuff, and then I can make reusable abstractions on top. But essentially this WebAssembly module, it's just an Elixir module. We do some preamble, but here's the function for accepting the new input. So the www form URL encoding is the standard for how those URL parameters are encoded into a string. So our WebAssembly module accepts like a function, or you can sort of think of it as a method to say, hey, here's the new data. And then we have two functions. The first one renders an HTML page. So you can see we just sort of literally just spit out some HTML, just got some inline styles. And then we iterate through each value in our data. And then each value, actually each character in the value, because we're going to HTML escape it. And that's going to generate these input fields. So you can see here, input type URL. And then the exact same thing for our XML sitemap. It's a little bit shorter because the XML output is just doesn't need as much as a visual form, but it's essentially the same thing. We're going to have some preamble for XML and the sitemap, and then we iterate through each value in our data and escape it and output that. And so that's it. It's one module, can render both HTML and XML, and we can load this on the server. So there's a whole bunch of server ways of running WebAssembly on the server. And then WebAssembly is designed for browsers, so there's just natural ways of using WebAssembly in the browser, and so that's what powered that single page app experience.